Good morning, everyone, for another installment of Open Book Broadcast. I'm your host, Allie, with The Right Place, Right Time. And on Open Book Broadcast, we talk about anything and everything to do with writing, and we're an open book about it. I'm super pumped for this morning's conversation with Kate Varness because Kate is wonderful. She is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant person, and a warm, kind-hearted soul. She's one of my favorite people, and I'm so lucky to have met her over the last few months. So, Kate, welcome to Open Book Broadcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Excellent. So I'm going to introduce Kate a little bit more formally so you get all of the wonderful things about Kate before we launch into today's conversation. Kate is a soul purpose and clarity coach who uses human design to help women go from chaos to clarity in their business and life. She's a multi-book author and an international speaker. After 15 years as a certified professional home organizer, life coach, and ADHD expert, Kate shifted her coaching practice online. That's when she discovered human design, which is a system for understanding yourself better. It's a bit like finding out your personality type, but even more fun. Since then, Kate's studied human design with Karen Curry Parker and is now in the highest level of quantum human design training. She lives a couple hours south of Chicago in the central US with her husband, kids, and chief operating dog, Mickey. I love that. Chief operating dog, Mickey. I have to know, what kind of dog is Mickey?
Mickey is a Beagle mix that
Okay.
we got rescued from the shelter, and he has his own little special comfy chair behind me, and he's always at my side, just like any good CDO would be. Wait,
Love it.
COD,
COD.
Chief Operating Dog.
I love it. All right. So, Kate, apart from Mickey, who's constantly at your side, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, an unusual thing about me is that I grew up on a dairy farm in Minnesota, and I have even birthed a calf before. But growing up on a farm was really not exactly what I would have imagined myself. If you can picture an 11-year-old girl sitting on her bed reading William Wordsworth poetry aloud to herself in a really awful British accent, that was me. So you can imagine how delighted I was when, a few years later, I was actually able to go to the Lake District. I was totally excited and faking my British accent, of course.
I love it. A poetry reading farm girl. Excellent. Excellent. So, Kate, you've obviously loved the written word and books and all these things for a really long time now. So why don't we just start a little bit there before we get to talking about business and now your human design work? You've been on this incredible journey of these other things, the professional home organizer, life coach, ADHD expert, and then there's like multiple books in there. So tell us a little bit about just your journey, how these things kind of connect and zigzag before we get to the human design piece.
Right. So originally I thought I was going to be a professor with like the tweed jacket and the pipe and the adoring students at my feet. But when I got my master's, I realized that I really wanted to make a bigger impact in the world. And then, so I got my master's, but didn't go on for the PhD. So I was like, well, what do I do with my life? I wasn't really sure. So I took some years off and had children and stayed home with those kids. And then I got into the home organizing thing. I'm such a nerd. I love to get credentials and things like that. So I got my certified organizer credential, my certified coach credential, and used those for about 15 years working with people in their homes. And during that process, I was also in leadership nationally and created a book and edited a book that is a professional organizer training textbook. So that was my first book I did purely as a volunteer. So I said, I need to write my own book for me. And I did that in 2019. It's called Who Am I Now? Realign Your Home and Life. And so that book was, it's about life transitions that happen in the second part of life and how stuff is connected to those different periods of your life. So if you ask yourself the question, what do I do with all my stuff from all these different years? That book answers that question. And so it really was the book that propelled me into my online journey because I thought I want to spread the word. And so that's been the book journey for me, has brought me online, which led me into a whole deep dive into marketing strategies, and that's how I found human design.
Oh my gosh, amazing. So many things that I want to touch on. So, number one, your book, which I put into the comments for folks with the link. For those of you who can't seem to see that comment, then it's on the banner at the bottom of the screen.
Ooh,
So go type in, oh, and there's the cover. Fabulous.
right.
So go type in that cover title, Who Am I Now? Realign Your Home and Life, so you can go and check it out. I have to know, what was your favorite place in the house to organize?
Honestly, I was just opening my bathroom drawers, this vanity drawers this morning, and I'm thinking, you know what? This needs a tidy up. And so I plan to do that. I actually, people are astonished to hear that I love to walk into a whole thing of chaos. And it's funny that I've done that in a home, and I can also do that in people's brains and businesses. So I love making order out of chaos. I absolutely don't um, see it or judge it. And maybe it's from growing up in a family with 7 kids. You know, it's really all about making it work for the person who I'm working with.
Right. Oh my gosh. So I'm so glad that you said that, because when you mentioned earlier, when I asked you about your journey, and you said like you got into the home organizing and you loved kind of like creating the control out of the chaos, I thought, oh well, this has got to be related to basically what you do in human design, right? Like, because humans are so intricate and unique, and we know this, right? Once we actually start to dive into human design. Um, and I'm getting ahead of the conversation, but people will catch up here in a second. That I can totally make the connection, like knowing what I know that you do, between like that home organization and then kind of like personal organization, personal meaning, person, self, soul. Um, that being said, let's tell people, before we dive into how freaking brilliant you are with the human design stuff. Let's actually tell people what the hell human design is, for people who don't know.
Right. I mean, it is kind of this weird thing. At least that's what I thought. And my husband's like, whatever, when I first learned about it. But, and I was skeptical. So I thought to myself, do I really need another certification? I mean, anyone here in the house can sympathize with that love of learning. So I ran away from it for a little while, but it chased me, sort of like Jonah and the whale. And then I kept finding myself going back to it and taking bites, like, sneaking bites like you would from a chocolate cake, until finally I'm like, you know what? I am actually eating this dessert. So
Eating it all.
human design, yeah, human design is a complex system that combines a number of archetypal systems. That's the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, quantum physics, and it pulls it together in a way that's like a boosted up personality type system. So all I need is your birth time, birthplace, and date, and I can get that energetic blueprint that really will show me a lot of different things, how your energy flows, how you can make decisions in a confident way, what might be your primary focus, sole purpose in life, and tons of things that actually apply to writing books. So it's a very useful thing. And what I've discovered, my skeptical self has taken a back seat now, because I've discovered again and again that there are patterns where people get their have a session with me, initial session. They're so validated. They're so like, how did you even know that? In fact, I recently gave someone a sneak peek. I haven't had the session with her yet. And I said, here's what I see, da 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 da, a few sentences. And she's like, I am floored. So to me, that is building the evidence for the power of the system as a really great jumping off place for personal growth, as well as discovering parts of yourself that you always knew were there, but you want to lift up and strengthen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So people can go and get their human design chart for free online, right? You can pretty much Google like free human design chart and put in your birth date and stuff, and that'll shoot back your report, right?
Right. And actually, I can give you a great place to go. It's called Jovian Archive, Jovian archive.com/get_your_chart. Just
Go
double
get
check
your
that.
free human design chart at
Yeah, so
Jovian.
then so if you're watching the replay of this, you can just pause it, go get your chart, and then come back, because I think, Allie, you wanted to ask me some more specific questions, and then that'll really like make more sense to you if you know what your type is.
So I'm gonna put this back. I'm gonna put this in the comments. So I just need to get the URL again. So Jovian dot. What did you say? Jovian.
It's jovianarchive.com
Archive.com. Okay.
/get_your_chart.
Okay. So, all right. When I first got my human design chart, this was a couple of years ago now. I remember looking at it and going, "What the fuck? What does any of this mean?" And it now occurs to me that it actually looks like a subway system inside your body. Like the chart that I got literally had kind of like the outline of a person, almost kind of unfortunately like the chalk drawings and like the really corny murder mystery movies. Like, the person is, just outlined on the pavement wherever they were killed. But inside the body, right, are all these lines and shapes and numbers. And you're like, what on earth? Okay, so number one, folks, do it, but then know that you're not going to be able to interpret it yourself unless you are a human design expert, which is why you really need somebody like Kate to interpret it for you. But I thought that some of the most important information, or at least the way to get started, and Kate, you can obviously jump in here, was up at the top. It like talked to me about my type, and then gave me two main numbers, one that was like over another. It kind of looked like a fraction, which at first was really intimidating for me because I hate fractions, but held a lot of powerful information. So can you talk to people, like they get their chart and then like kind of that high level info and kind of sort of what it means?
Yeah, I'd love to. And you're exactly right. The place to begin your human design journey is with understanding your human design type and profile. The type has a lot of different implications, and so often we may be living by someone else's rules, and it ends up that that's the place for us to begin to understand, well, how does my energy flow? That's what the type is going to tell you. What's my strategy for working with that energy? And then in the profile, it's like, what's my role in life now? So maybe a hermit, so they need a lot of time puttering alone in a non-productive way, and that's restorative to them. Others might be out there, bumping into things, trial and error, but learning from those experiments in a powerful way. Others might be that visionary leader that's really meant to convey the essential information, a subject that they are interested in or doing for their business. So this is an excellent way to work through that. I actually have a freebie that maybe you're going to mention later that can help to guide through that initial step. So let's say you get your chart, you look at it, and it's like, what is this weirdness? Know that it's a layering of like at least 3 different systems. And so you're not going to get it all at one time. If I find that many people I work with are already familiar with the chakra system. So the chakra system, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, is one of those that actually you can kind of identify with. So whenever you're learning something new, it's always best to attach it to something you already know. Okay. So that's a good way in for some people. It's a little bit of a variation. So let me tell you about the types. Would you like to know that, Allie?
Yes. Tell us.
All right. So there is 5 different types. The first one is called a manifester, and they're only about 8% of the population, and they're here to kick things off. They're here to like get that inspiration and then go with it, create something. They're not necessarily here to finish things. So they may have some beliefs around the fact that they're not finishing things. But when they learn their energy type, it actually liberates them from having to put that pressure on themselves. Their big strategy is to inform others. Now, manifestors have strong energy. And so when they may be experienced by the people around them as kind of maybe chaotic, or like, what's this person going to do? So their strategy is to inform the people around them. And if they don't inform others, I'm not saying ask permission, but if they don't inform others, they're going to end up getting resistance. And that'll be super annoying to them. So that's the picture of the manifestor, the first type. The second group is a bigger group. There are 2 generator types, and 70% of the population falls into this. So I would say most of the people viewing this are in the generator type category, and they are here to work. They're good at working. And in fact, other people can see that, and they're like, hey, I want you on my team. Hey, I want you on my committee. Can you do this? And sometimes generator types are like, well, I can do it. I have, and so maybe I should. And so then they can end up getting burned out because they're not saying yes to the things they really want to do. So the strategy for generator types, and this is going to be hard, is to wait to respond. So what that looks like practically, at least one of the things it can look like, is to, when somebody asks you to do something or you have an opportunity, pause, ask yourself, do I have the energy for this? This is great advice for anyone, right? But particularly for generators. And if the answer is then don't do it, because you'll end up being kind of bitter about things and not have energy for what you want to do. Now, so Allie, you and I are manifesting generators. So if you think about this is like a worker on steroids. This is like the racehorse. Yes. It's like,
people, it is
Yeah.
exactly like that.
Such fast energy, because it's like a twofer. So it combines some of the pieces of the manifestor, of that inspiration that gets translated into action, with the generator piece, which is the base part of this type, that needs to wait to respond. So what kind of cruel joke does the universe have for manifesting generators, that they get all these fast ideas and they work quickly and they find efficiencies and find the fastest way to get somewhere, and yet they're meant to wait to respond. So this is a huge source of adjustment in the energy. And it's not that manifesting generators like you and I have to be boring people who just do things one step at a time. No, it's more like, okay, perhaps we work in spurts, perhaps we go in cycles. That learning how to manage your own energy in a way that really feels good for you, that's the golden ticket right there. Okay, so 2 more types, and these 2 are non-energy types, which mean that they don't have consistent access to energy. 20% of the groupings, the 20% of people are projectors, and projectors are here to be those wise guides. They're the ones who can say, I see how this can work really well in this project, and so I'm going to advise you on that. Projectors are not meant to be the energizer bunnies that manifesting generators are, or even generators are. They're meant to work maybe ideally like 4 hours a day and do lots and lots and lots of rest. So there's a ton of what we call conditioning on projector types, because our US society at least values, working hard, gotta work 8-hour days, 10-hour days, pedal to the metal, that kind of attitude. And it's really all wrong for projectors. They often end up getting burned out, like seriously burned out, before the age of 40. So if that's you, it's important for you in the audience to say, okay, well, maybe I have this other energy type. And then what does that mean for me? Because it's a process of letting go of all those expectations. The strategy for projectors is to wait to be invited. Now, I'm not saying you should stand by your mailbox and wait for an invitation to come in the mail. Think more like you're the queen and you enter the room. And when the queen enters the room, people are noticing. They're like, oh, wow, this person is pretty special. And they'll want to invite that person and their expertise in to share. The last type is a reflector. They are a not energy type. They're actually a lunar type, which means that their strategy is to wait a full cycle of the moon before making big decisions. They're only like 1% of the population. I like to think of reflectors as the treasured shaman in a village because they're able to gauge whether or not the community or the organization is doing well or if it's sick, if there's something that needs to be adjusted. So there's the overview of the energy types. A lot of information I know within that, but
But
gives you a
I've got
sense.
new
Yeah.
questions that just came to mind as you were going through the types. So you said in the beginning that about 70% are generators or 70% are manifesting generators.
So it's split within, but the generator type holds both types. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But the manifesting generators are a sort of a subtype, but I like to think of them as their whole separate type because I am one, and I mean, so are you, so we're special, right?
I was just wondering though, because then you said that like 20% are projectors, and projectors are conditioned within our society, right, to basically operate outside of what their human design type is. So I'm just wondering if it's truly that generators take up 70%, or if there are some miscategorized people in that 70%. Because do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So actually, if I mean, generators need to wait in some ways as well, but if you think of them as only 8%, and then 92% of people are actually designed to wait in some form or another, like we're really all have been given messages that we're supposed to, just do it. And it's not, initiating the action is not really allowing us to co-create with others, with the universe, however you would phrase that we don't have to make things happen. When we're forcing things and trying to prove ourselves, it ends up, the product ends up being not as good as it would be if we were able to tune ourselves into the flow, in our own natural flow in particular.
Yeah, right. So the second thing that came to mind as I was listening to the types was, do you find any particular type more creative than another? Like I was thinking, like, do most writers perhaps fall in a particular type? Like, is there any correlation, I guess? This is just a curiosity question.
That's a great question. I think, though, every single person is creative in their own way. Manifestors are creative in that they receive that inspiration and bring it forward. Generators are creative in that they are also following through on their ideas, and maybe more in a step-by-step way. Manifesting generators get that impulse to create often, and perhaps it needs to be tampered a little bit so that there isn't so many things going on, although there can be lots of things going on. So they might look like they're the most creative, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Projectors create in the way they masterfully guide a group, and in other ways as well. And reflectors create in the way that they serve as a mirror for the rest of us to understand ourselves in their presence. So there's so many beautiful different expressions of creativity. And to me, creativity is what makes life so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, Kate, I feel like this is your next book. Like, this is the download that I'm getting, is like it's like the big magic for human design types and living a creative life within their human design type. So I'm just going to plant that seed with you. I know you don't need any more ideas as a manifesting generator, but I'm going to plant it with you anyway. So speaking of books, let's just talk generally for a second, and then we're going to go into our type, which is manifesting generator. But what would be the benefit for someone who's working on a book of knowing their human design type?
So I see really three benefits right off the bat. The first one is to know that natural flow. And so, in scheduling, how are you going to do it? So a generator might move it in a really consistent way and have someone who they're speaking with so that they keep dipping into that excitement about it. Manifesting generators might work in spurts and marathons, right? The projectors might here's a good one for projectors writing a book. If you're a projector, find someone who can ask you really good questions, record the session, and get it transcribed. Because projectors, they don't need advice. They just need to be able to hear their own voice. So it's a efficient way to create a draft of a book is to actually have someone ask you questions, you speak it out, it gets transcribed, and then you can work with it from there. And actually that could work for other people too if they're verbal processors. So those are just some examples for the first way. The second way is to know where you are, where to see your gifts and like feel really confident about those gifts, and also to see where you might be believing the BS junk about what you're supposed to do, and then kind of like shedding that. And so that's the second way. And the third way is in that you can see your soul purpose, and it gets validated, it gets strengthened. You can see specifically where what you might be talking about in the Mercury gate, for example. In other areas, what am I here for? What's my brand? That's in your chart. So again, it's a chart is one part of the equation. It's not the definitive thing, but it gives so much information and confidence, because being an author, you like, do people really want to hear what I have to say? Um, am I really enough of an expert to do this? And I would say there is no one else like you who can tell your story, and that it's important for you to do so. If you feel like you've got that book wanting to be born within you, then make it happen.
Yeah.
You're the only person who can write it.
Oh my God. And I think I think you really truly, they always say things, right, through all sorts of different industries or whatever, like, oh, people are unique, people are special, whatever. But I think you don't really grasp that until you see your human design chart. And then you're like, whoa, this is wild. Like, you could be in a whole group of people and you could all be a manifesting generator, yet all of the more intricate little subway systems, as I referred to them earlier, could be completely different, like your flavor of that type. And it's astonishing, like how unique truly we are. Like, we're unique from our DNA perspective, and we've all wrapped our heads around that, and we're like, yeah, okay. But to really see more like how intricate and different our souls are, and how it shows up in the world, is just like one of the most interesting and amazing things. And it's so validating. Like, you're just seen in such a different way, because these charts are just like, it's still mind blowing. Like, the first time that I got my chart, explained to me, I was like, whoa, this is freaky shit. Because it really did reflect me so much. And then Kate, when we looked at my chart together just a couple months ago, or maybe it was longer than that now, but recently, again, like the stuff that you pulled out, and you went into a little bit more depth in the original reading that I had with somebody else. Again, I was just like, whoa, this is just crazy. Like, this is me right here on this page in this, murder mystery outline chart. And it was so validating. So we're both manifesting generators. So for those of us who are that type, what would be your specific recommendations for that type, for somebody writing a book?
Yeah, and I want to tell you one other little secret, and that is the way my type is designed is that I receive information for another. And so that information, I don't know where it comes from, but it feels heaven sent. I will receive like a message here and there, or certain things to highlight. And so the way that I'm interacting with the system is very expansive and personal as well. So to your question about manifesting generators, uh, people around us can feel like we're kind of chaotic. I don't know if that's true for you, but it's definitely, my husband's like, you're either working or not. You're like always doing something. And I will go into deep dives of learning, deep dives of projects, those kinds of things. And so it's important to let other people know, not ask permission, but let other people know what it is that you're doing, so that they can feel um, okay, so they can understand what's going on. It's informing is a way to reduce resistance. So that's one way you can interact with the people around you. Another way is to create like a parking lot for your ideas, because there's going to be so many ideas coming in that can be easy to go down a rabbit hole. So manifesting generators do not have to pick just one thing and stick with it like super boring. They can have 4 or 5 things going at the same time, but know that maybe just a couple of those are going to be the ones that come into fruition, and that's okay. There's a lot of energy within manifesting generators to do and to create. So the question is, are you over busy without seeing the benefits of it? And if that's the case, it's time to maybe I mean, not to compare MGs to horses, but horses kind of need a handler, right? And it's not that you're having a handler who's limiting you, but you're having someone who helps to ground you and anchor you. And that's why, like, if you're writing a book, you really need to have a guide there. You need someone who is interacting with you, understanding you, encouraging you. For my book, I never would have completed it. I still would have been like, someday I'm going to write my own book. I would have been doing that for a long time. And I realized that I needed the support and structure, and it was worth every penny to have that additional set of expertise, but also support in making sure that I was butt in the chair, getting that final few months completed so that it could actually happen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such great advice and insight. So we have to wrap up our conversation, unfortunately. So Kate, obviously people can connect with you on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I put in the chat already, or in the comments rather, the link to your book and the link to your freebie. But is there anything that you want to tell people about that's coming up for you, or do you want to speak more about the freebie that you have?
So actually what I feel called to share is to say that there was no sweeter time than receiving my printed book and opening that book up, that package up, and seeing it to fruition. So if you are considering working with Allie or with someone else to birth your book, make 2023 the year that you do that. From a human design perspective, I can absolutely support you around gaining the confidence and self-knowledge that you need to move forward. So if that's something you're interested in, let's connect. You just search Kate Varness. There's no one else like me out there with the name.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of a kind, just like we were talking about. So I'm going to put her name up bigger, so just in case you can't catch it on the background there. And so Google Kate and throw in human design, and I'm sure you're going to find her and everything she's about. So Kate, thank you so much for being with us today on Open Book Broadcast. And folks, I will be back again on Tuesday, November 8th. All right. Bye for now.